6, we talked about the horrible living conditions that the Israelites were in at this time. You know, they were backslidden away from God, and as a result, they were suffering not only a horrible famine, but they were also under the control of the king of Syria, which has been Hadad. And so, there's such a lack of food in the kingdom. Remember last week we talked about the woman that boiled her own son and ate him? That's how bad this was. I mean, they were forking out gold and silver just to get a hold of some dove's dung. Isn't that nasty? And a donkey's head. Isn't that what y'all want for lunch today? But that's how bad it was. They had nothing to eat. They were starving to death, but still they didn't repent, and still they didn't ask God for any help. God will allow some things in our life. Look, hey, if we want Him out of our life, hey, He's a gentleman. He's not going to twist our arm and make us serve Him. But He's got ways to make us come around. Remember the prodigal son? Remember how he spent all his money on riotous living, and it just so happened at that time that the money ran out, that there was a famine in the land, and it took him eating out of the same pig food as the hogs did. I mean, he was eating from the hog trough before he came to himself and realized, hey, I've been a dummy. The servants at my father's house have it better than I do. I'll go back to my father. He's got ways of taking his protective hand off. He's got ways of letting us know that our way is not the best way. And all they had to do was repent, turn around, and God would have helped them. So that's the situation they're in. The king of Israel, Jehoram, has gone down. Somehow, in the midst of all this, King Jehoram, the king of Israel, wants to blame the man of God, Elijah, for everything that's going on. So he goes down to where Elisha is at, and he calls unto him. He said, I'm not waiting on the Lord any longer. He never waited on him to start with. But this is where we pick up. This is Elijah's response to King Jehoram. As I want to preach on the subject of picture of salvation, this book is such an amazing living book. I mean, you can find New Testament principles in the Old Testament pictures. And it's a living book. You can preach messages of salvation right here out of the Old Testament. And this story about the four lepers is a beautiful picture of salvation. It's a beautiful picture of what happens when somebody comes to Jesus Christ in need of salvation. And what can we learn about salvation through the experience of these lepers? I've got 5 things this morning. Don't worry, I'm not going to be too long. But 5 things that we can learn about salvation from these lepers. The first thing we can learn, number 1, is about the search of salvation. Look at verse 3. And there were 4 leprous men at the entering in of the gate. And they said one to another, why sit we here until we die? If we say we will enter into the city, then the famine's in the city, and we shall die there. And if we sit still here, we die also. Now therefore come and let us fall under the host of the Syrians. If they save us alive, we shall live. And if they kill us, we shall but die. And they rose up in the twilight to go up to the camp of the Samaritans. They're searching for something. These leprous men are in a dilemma. And it's so amazing. The Bible never ceases to amaze me. But, leprosy in the Bible is a type or a picture of sin. And even the numbers have great significance in the Bible. The number 4 in the Bible is the number of creation. And in fact, it's really a creation that's fallen under the judgment of God because of sin. So you have 4 leprous men. These are a picture of the lost man, the unregenerate man, the man or the woman that does not know Jesus Christ in the part of their sins. That's what these men represent. They're in a dilemma. And they're facing death on every side of them. If they go, first of all, they're outside of the city because they weren't allowed to live in the city because of their disease. They were unclean. But if they go into the city, there's no food there anyway. If they sit there at the gate, they're going to die anyway. You know what their only hope is? To see if the enemy will have mercy on them. Remember we said Ben-Hadad, the king of Syria, was a type of Satan, a picture of Satan? Their only option is never going to have mercy on anybody in this world. It doesn't matter how much you serve him. It doesn't matter how kind you think he may be, friend. He's not going to have mercy. And we're automatically in trouble when our only option is to trust the enemy for any kind of mercy. He's not going to show support. He knows his time is short. His goal is to take every single person to hell for all eternity. And if he can't do that, if he can't get your soul, he'll try to get you in such a mindset as you're not being a light for Jesus Christ and you're not standing in the gap for anybody else. Hell's a real place. Jesus talked more about hell than he did heaven. In fact, he mentioned hell 56 times in the New Testament. Did you know that? He said it would be better. He said if your eyes are going to keep you out of heaven, he said it would be better to pluck your eyes out and go to heaven without any eyes than to go to hell with both of them. It's just an analogy. I get that, but he's telling you how horrible hell is. He said if your hand is going to keep you from going to heaven, it would be better to chop your hand off and go into heaven with only one hand than to go into hell and have both of them. That's terrible, friend. Can you imagine just holding your arm out there and just going through it with a saw? How horrible. He said hell's worse. At least that's temporary. Hell's real. I know we live in a society that like to talk about that, but it's just the truth. These men were eaten up with their leprosy and their hunger in the physical sense, but it's a picture for us. You know, we ought to identify with these lepers because before we were saved, we were in that same situation. Death on every side of us, and the only hope was that the enemy was going to have mercy on us because the Bible says in Romans 3:10, as it is written, there is none righteous, no, not one. Romans 3:23, for all, you know who includes that word all? You and me and everybody that's ever taken a breath in this lifetime. All have sinned and come short of the glory of God. You think you're good enough to go to heaven? I can tell you right now, you ain't good enough. You know why? Because it ain't about being good enough, it's about being perfect. You know what happens when you break the laws of Alabama? You go to jail. And what happens if the cops come and get you? Let's say you kill somebody. You get caught, the cops come to get you. It's not going to help you immediately say, well, hey, I gave money to the Salvation Army. I gave some furniture to the Hannah Home. Hey, I've been a good person. I give to charity. I give to the job. I put an extra 10 in the office. But then all the cops going to look at you like, what does that have to do with the fact that you killed somebody? You're going to jail. Hey, look, it's the same way with God. It's not about being good or bad. It's about breaking His law. And we have all broken the law of God. And there's nothing we can do to change that. We've broken the law of God. And when people stand in judgment there, the great white throne judgment, it's not going to matter what good things. He's going to say, what did that have to do with the fact that you broke my law? These people, these lepers, were in a hopeless situation, facing death on every side. But look at the beginning of verse 5. It says, they rose up in the twilight to go unto the camp of Syria. They were searching for something to fill their hunger. They were searching for something to fill their thirst. They did something they were searching for. And that's what happens. There's a search for salvation. Look, you're never going to find God unless you look for Him a little bit. Most of the world we live in is so content. Look, we talk about how bad we've got it. I saw a homeless man the other day with an iPhone. I'm serious. We don't know what it is to be bad. I mean, we don't know what it is to go without a meal. We don't know what it is to, or at least I don't, sleep in an alley somewhere. We still got it good. But there's got to be some searching. You've got to want to change. You've got to want something that fills that hunger and that thirst inside you, just like our missionary to Israel, Wednesday night. He talked about how successful he was. He talked about how good he was, what college he went to, and yet his life was still empty. That's what it is to be without Jesus Christ. There's not enough money in Fort Knox to make somebody happy. There's not enough money to fill that void in somebody's life. Why does a Michael Jackson or a Whitney Houston have to kill themselves with drugs? They got everything, but they got nothing. That doesn't help anybody. That doesn't fill that Jeremiah 29:13, it said, "You shall seek me and find me when you shall search for me with all your heart." It's like Brother Ross said when we said, look, if you want to know the truth, and if you want to know the one true living God, you can know Him and you can find Him. But here's the thing. You got to search with all your heart. And sometimes that's going to cost you some family members. Sometimes that may cost you your dreams, what you wanted to do with your life. It may cost you sometimes even a job. I mean, you may have to sacrifice some things to become a child of the King. That's just the way that it is. Jesus said, "I came not to bring peace. I came to bring a sword." He said, "I came to divide those of your own household." You know, when you got saved, everybody wasn't happy about it. I wish I could borrow about three amens on that. When you got saved, man, everybody wasn't happy about that. It may cost you some things, but you can know if that's what you really want. If you search for me all your heart, He said, He promised you find it. You find it. And can I say that anyone in the world can be saved if it's their desire to know the true and the living God? I don't care where they are. I don't even care if they hadn't heard the gospel. They can. You say, how? Because God has put enough faith in every person to be saved. Titus 2 verse 11 says that the grace of God that bringeth forth salvation hath appeared unto all men. John 1 verse 8, Jesus, it says that He has lighted every man that cometh into the world. He's given enough light for somebody to be saved. And I have a couple of examples of this very thing. We used to support Rock of Ages at Faith there in Gordo. And we get monthly missionary letters. And one of the prisoners said in the letter that, you know, he got put in prison. He was kind of into his rope. He had hit rock bottom, and he just knelt in his cell there. He'd never been in church in his life, never heard the gospel, didn't know a thing about God. But he said, "God, if you're out there, I want to know who you are. I want to know your name. Would you send somebody to tell me who you are?" 2 days later, one of the Rock of Ages prison ministers comes in there and tells him the gospel. Man gets saved. There's a famous person that, if I get this wrong, don't hold it against me. I think it's Rabbi Zacharias, but I'm not sure about that. But he was a Hindu witch doctor. He was responsible for making all the totem poles and the different idols for the village worship. And he was out there one night working under the stars and by the firelight. And he was carving out this totem pole, and he looked up at the moon and looked up at the stars, and he looked at the wonders of creation. He said, "You know, this is done." He said, "By me carving this totem pole, that means I'm greater than this totem pole. What sense does it make for me to worship this totem pole?" And he got to look around and said, "You know, somebody somewhere had to create me." And he said, "God, if you're out there, if my Creator, if you can hear me, I want to know who you are." 2 weeks later, a missionary come by and told him about Jesus. He gets saved. He's a preacher now. You know what? He wanted to know the truth. He wanted to know the true living God. And God showed up and showed who He was. We see these lepers had a helpless situation, but they did something about it. They went searching for an answer. If you find yourself hungry and thirsty in this life, if you're empty on the inside, you're full of guilt and shame, hey, I can tell you where you can find some help. There is a fountain filled with blood drawn from Emmanuel's veins, and sinners plunge beneath that blood lose all their guilt and stain. Jesus Christ can save you. He can feel that desire and that void, but you got to want it. You got to want it more than anything else in the world. You want to take all that stuff in with Him. You can't take the world in one hand and Jesus with the other. No. You got to let go and grab Him with both arms. He's there if you want Him. The second thing about this picture of salvation, not only about the search,